What's up, y'all? It's the kid FortWorthFabian, BigBossFabo. I'm back with the video for you guys, man. I'm actually doing a VH1 Rise and Rise of Motley Crüe VH1 documentary reaction. Honestly, not positive if this is a behind the music or if this is its own separate VH1 documentary. But let me know y'all's thoughts on Motley Crüe in the comment section down below. I believe this is the first reaction I've done to Motley Crüe on the channel, bro. So, as you know, I've been doing a lot of these VH1 behind the music documentaries. So, this is a documentary I saw, within the mix. So, I wanted to kind of do it. If you have additional recommendations, put them down in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter at FortWorthFabian. It's the road to 1 million, man. Peace, love, prosperity to everybody rocking with the channel. So, Motley Crüe, an American heavy metal band formed in LA in '81. The group was founded by Nikki Sixx, Tommy Lee, and Mick Mars, and lead singer Vince Neil. They've sold over 100 million albums worldwide. Okay. So let's go ahead and hop into the reaction, man. Without wasting any more time.
They had a certain something.
Nikki would talk about it all the time. I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to be somebody.
Tommy would play the drums 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
When he got on his drum set, it was like electricity.
When Vince was on stage, he was a very different person. The girls loved him.
Mick didn't have a dime to his name, but once I heard him play, it was turn out the lights. This guy's just got it.
They chased one goal relentlessly.
They wanted to be the biggest band in the world, and they knew they could do it.
Through struggles.
Nicky just could not keep a beat.
He wasn't a musician.
They had no food.
They were just living off of whoever will help them out at the time.
And setbacks.
Bob Krasnow said Elektra is not really interested in selling music to people who live in the gutter.
They were just a joke.
Some people are just driven. 4 rebellious rockers' defiant pursuit of superstardom.
Nikki Sixx had a plan for world domination.
They weren't going to give up until they got what they wanted. What they wanted was Hollywood by the balls.
Never before seen images, stories, and revelations from the people who know what really happened.
There's girls everywhere, wall-to-wall girls.
Because they lived it with them.
They'd come into the studio and they'd be doing drugs. We couldn't take 5 years to turn this into something,
drugs.
or this organism would destroy itself.
You just couldn't help but say to yourself that these guys are either going to fall flat on their face or they're going to go right to the top.
This is Driven Motley Crüe.
The rise and rise of Motley Crüe.
Frank Ferrano was born December 11th, 1958.
We call him Nicky now. As a kid, we called him Frank, among other things. When Frank was born, his mother was 17.
She was beautiful. She was striking, and she was very charming. She really tried to do the right things, but as fate would have it, every time she turned around, she made a mistake with this, or made a mistake with that, or a misjudgment on people.
When Frank's father and mother split the sheets with each other, it caused so much hard feelings between them that Frank suffered for it.
My mom was dealing with quite a bit. We had hard times. It was the sole income. She didn't have anybody else to take care of us. And she was also very wild. She liked to party.
One time, his mother had took off and went with a truck driver, and she had left him with some woman in Sparks, Nevada. She called his grandmother and I. We picked him up and brought him home with us. When his mom would leave him, he'd never talk about it, except Mom had to go someplace.
Mom had to handle business. How you gonna leave with a random associate, not even a friend, a random person you met on the road? Grandma gotta come pick him up. Come on, man, that's wild.
We lived in El Paso. We spent at least a year together there with my grandfather and my grandmother and my mom.
We had a hog ranch down in Texas. When Frank was a little boy, he had to fight his way through school. The big kids would grab him and take his money, and one time he loaded a lunchbox full of rock, and when the kid come up after him, Frank just hauled off and batted him with it, and no more problem from then on. He let him get independent for himself.
That boy knocked him out.
It's the only thing he could do.
My mom and I moved to Seattle when I was probably about 3. Because of my mom's wildness, my grandparents felt that it was best if they took Frank and raised him, at least for a little while.
Frank was kind of brought up like a gypsy because I moved from job to job for a while. We had the kid with us down in Texas, New Mexico, Lake Tahoe, and Jerome, Idaho. It's a hard life on him.
Damn! Those are some weird places to grow up as a young fella.
He got sick of being told what to do.
Frank was having trouble in school a little bit, and it upset me.
I think a lot of Frank's attitude came from being kind of exported.
Frank come to the conclusion that small town was too small. He decided that he'd go back and live with his mother. So his grandmother sent him to Seattle.
Frank came to Roosevelt High School in 10th grade.
When I first met him, he was hitting on my girlfriend.
He was a Peter Frampton lookalike. He had
Ha 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 ha. Young boy done pulled up, said, "What's cracking?" Pull up, what happened? Pull up, what's happening? Mister, take your girl.
long shag haircut.
He was really hot. He had like a sandy brown skin and he was real tan and he had these eyes that were just captivating.
He looked like a rocker kind of guy.
It was fairly obvious that we were the rock and rollers, and I think he really clicked on that.
We had long hair and we dressed pretty flashy.
We were really into a lot of glamour rock.
Alice Cooper, David Bowie.
We were the loudest, hardest rocking band in high school.
Hey, check out my David Bowie reaction.
I invited him to the house after school to hear the band practice. We had a stage set up in my basement, and we would actually get all dressed up with the satin shirts, and we would walk out there under the lights like it was, the big concert.
As soon as he saw us play, light bulbs went off in his head.
Frank didn't play a note, but he really had the drive.
He bugged Rick, show me how to play.
I started teaching him some things. Somehow or another, I gave him the impression that if he could just get a bass, he could be in the band. One day, Frank walks in a music store down in the University District with an empty guitar case.
And asked for an application. When the guy turned around and went to the back room, Frank very calmly just opened up the guitar case, sticks the guitar in there, closes the case, and then waits. Instead of running out the store, he just stands there. And this person goes back, gives him the application, he says, "Thanks, no problem."
He comes to the door, and he's all flushed, and he's breathing hard, and look what I got. And he opens it up, and I look at it, and I just can't believe what I'm looking at. And I just say, this is a guitar. This is not a bass.
Even though I was just the stupid drummer, I knew the difference between a Les Paul and a bass.
And the look on his face was just of disappointment and despair. What?
Frank wanted to be in the band, and desperate times call for desperate measures.
We began to find out that Frank was having a lot of trouble at home. I can remember a time when his mom was shouting obscenities behind him. Not real pleasant environment that he was coming from.
I knew he was having fights with his mom quite a bit.
Frank seemed to think that his mom hated him.
He was in those teenage years, growing up and discovering himself. You could tell he was just kind of agitated a lot.
He started to do some drugs.
When Frank and I went out to drink and to party, it was to excess.
You were smoking dope or you were drinking MD-20.
There was a big blow up between him and my mom, and there was just no resolving it. He was not doing well in high school.
By the middle of 11th grade, Frank dropped out altogether.
It got really bad. My mom and him had a talk, and the next thing I know, he went to Idaho.
When Frank came from Seattle to Jerome, he was a different person. He had an axe to grind with the world at that time.
He was talking about what it was like to take acid. It was hard to connect with Frank.
Frank always said that I'm going to be a rock musician if it kills me.
Something inside was telling him to go for his dream.
Between that and partying, that's all he thought about.
He decided to leave.
He had his mind made up and went to Los Angeles to become a rock star.
What a glorious time it was in the late 70s when the Sunset Strip was like the gold rush.
There was just sex everywhere, and there was drugs everywhere.
Frank was living from hand to mouth and sleeping in cars or wherever he could.
Rockstar lifestyle might not make it, baby. Like, the sacrifice for the rockstar lifestyle. Are you willing to take it? Are you willing to make it? Might not make it. Shit. Who willing to take the big risks? You gotta sacrifice, man. You gotta sacrifice.
Hey, Fag, how the hell are you doing, man? What the hell's going on? And he stopped and he goes, Sam, I'm only going to tell you this once. Frank Farana is dead. I don't want to be called that. Don't call me that anymore. My name is Nikki Sixx now.
He was adamant. I am not Frank Farana. I am Nikki Sixx, and that's what you need to call me.
He wanted to really erase his past.
The name change was a big part of Frank's metamorphosis. He killed off Frank Farana and rebuilt himself from scratch.
Frank Farana, he couldn't steal a break. Nikki Sixx, that's altogether different.
The first time I ever saw Nikki, we were playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, and I was in an all-girl band. You couldn't miss him walking through the door. This hair that just was huge.
He was already dressed for MTV before there was an MTV.
Nikki had the dream of being a rock star. It wasn't like he was driven to learn his instrument. It was a prop. You know, the only thing with that prop, you do have to play a little bit.
This guy didn't even know what a E chord was.
Talk about aspiration, huh? I like that. He living a dream. He don't even know what he's doing yet. This is belief right here. This is having a faith in the system, right? This is having a faith in yourself, right? Sheesh, talk about confidence.
Nikki learned how to be a better musician from our drummer, Lori Bell. They used to practice together. She would just get so furious with him. She'd be slapping her legs really hard, and Nikki just could not keep a beat.
When I first met Nikki Sixx, I was a street kid living in Hollywood. There was just this chemistry. I liked him immediately. I said, let's you and me start a band. And he was really happy. Like, he hugged me and was just like, yeah, let's do it, man. And so that was it.
London was fronted by Nigel Benjamin, the former lead singer of the very last incarnation of Mott the Hoople. Nikki Sixx was the bass player and in many ways the architect of the whole London theme.
We were going to try to perpetuate the classic glitter rock of 74, 75, kind of glitzy, glam, ambisexual, whatever you want to call it.
Glam rock was going crazy back in the day.
The whole scene in Hollywood at that exact moment was almost permeated with punk rock. Those people wanted no part of it. London would play a sold-out weekend at the Starwood, and then we'd go down there to get paid on Sunday. Nikki had to walk through an entire crowd of wrathful punks, you know, who did not like the way he looked.
The crowd of people, they were laughing at him like, oh my God, take a look at these freaks.
And he got spit on like 100 times.
They were just a joke.
We'd play shows, and Nigel would come backstage and go, that guy sucks, he can't play, I want him out of the band.
Nikki was not a strong musician. Nikki was all over the place.
There was just a lot of turmoil within that group.
Nigel had an extremely huge ego. He goes, it's Nikki or me. And I said, no way, Nikki's not going anywhere. Nigel Benjamin quit the band. The magic was gone.
Nikki said, I want something bigger, I want to shock people. I want to get out there and I want to be known.
One day I'm sitting with Nikki, we're out in my car, and Nikki started crying. And I go, what's the matter? And he goes, this makes me sad to think about it. He was, hold on a second. He started crying because he was quitting the band, and I didn't know that, you know.
Nikki wanted to put together 3 other guys that he had handpicked to be in a star band.
Nikki Sixx was a rock and roll architect, out to build the ultimate heavy metal beast.
Nicky hooked up with Tommy Lee.
He knew Tommy from Sweet 19.
Tommy was very young at the time, I think still in high school.
Nicky definitely got the best drummer around at that time.
Tommy was born in Athens on October 3rd, 1962. Tommy was 2 when my mom brought him back to the United States.
Growing up, he was a great all-American kid.
Tommy's relationship with his parents was very good.
You could tell it was a tight-knit family, and everybody supported everybody.
My parents were pretty Leave It to Beaver.
Tommy had a lot of energy. He was very hyperactive. He loved music.
Tommy was banging on the stuff in the kitchen. He was playing on the walls. My father bought him a drum set for Christmas from Sears. The front was all psychedelic, and there was a light inside the kick drum that blinked on and off, and he just thought that was the coolest thing alive. I remember when Tommy first got into ballet and tap class. Tommy had to come with me to class. Instead of him just sitting and watching the whole time, my mom was like, while you're here, you might as well try it, right? So he kind of got into it.
He did ballet.
They used to call him the 2x4 because he was like really stiff, you know?
I remember one time coming over to his house, and he's in a pair of tights. And I'm like, Tom, why are you wearing the tights?
If I was ever mad at him or something, I'd go right in the middle of the street and I'd just go, hey, Tommy, it's time for ballet.
He was kind of embarrassed about it.
I met Tom at Royal Oak High School.
Tommy was a skinny little guy, long hair, and kind of tall and lanky.
It was tough for him because he wasn't quite cool yet. He didn't really know where he was fitting.
He was kind of skinny and he was tall and he was lanky. Maybe he'll get your
Tommy got hassled a lot just for looking different and being different and having different interests. You know, he didn't want to play football.
He really wanted people to like him, and if they didn't like him, he was kind of hurt and wanted to know why. You know, why don't they like me?
Tom was a quiet guy, but his personality, he would change when he would play the drums. I mean, you could see it.
He was in our high school band. Yeah, he was a band nerd.
Yeah. Everything was music, music, music.
Tommy would play the drums 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If anything, we had to pry Tommy off the drums.
They know the game. They're here to stay. They are the artists you...
I used to pay $162 every month for my car insurance. Now, check out how much...
know and love. Check out the newest videos you songs on VH1.
Got a whole VH1 commercial series. Okay.
Tommy always wanted to start a band.
They made up the group US 101.
Basically, it was a cover band. They were playing Styx.
Stuff like Fog Hats.
Journey was real popular.
Once Tommy was getting more comfortable with himself, that's when he got really cute. The girls started really digging him.
This one girl would come over and she would be in the driveway or on the side of our house just screaming, Tommy, I want to have your baby.
Please come out. Throwing rocks at the windows, and it was pretty crazy. Tommy's mom was very lenient. His dad was a lot more strict.
His dad wasn't real supportive about what was going on. He thought he was more or less wasting his time.
They had conversations about his education and where he was going in life.
It got ugly once in a while.
My dad was always a military guy. He had been in the military for about 40 years. My dad was saying, well, you know, you can always go in the Army and play music. And my brother wanted nothing to do with it. That ended up being a pretty gnarly fight. My dad was pissed off, and he said something about being a man, let's go outside. He took my brother in the backyard, and they were fist fighting. Tommy left right then. He just left and, you know, didn't come back till 2, 3 in the morning, something like that.
Boy got beat up.
Tommy always knew where he was going, but I don't think anyone else knew.
US 101 was falling apart.
There was some infighting.
At about this time, Tommy started dressing a little differently. He was stealing my makeup. He was taking my earrings, he was taking my shirts.
He was starting to play in a band called Sweet 19, starting to play some of the Hollywood clubs, starting to get into the stuff that he really wanted to do.
We had heard through the grapevine that Tommy had got together with Nicky, the guy from London.
Him and Tommy clicked immediately.
He got the call to play with Nicky. He left high school, he left the house, then he moved to Hollywood.
There's nothing you can do to stop him at that point.
I remember just flipping out because all of a sudden he was just gone.
Nicky had a vision of
dreams,
this band.
baby.
It was his concerted effort to put the ultimate rock band together.
He had found an amazing drummer.
The problem was just trying to find a great guitarist.
His real name was Robert Anthony Deal.
He grew up in Garden Grove, California.
He didn't like the initials
Cali Kids.
R.A.D.
He was always coming up with another name every week to be called instead of being called Bob Deal.
When he hit Mick Mars, you know, it just kind of came out and it stuck.
We had a band called White Horse back in the mid-'70s. Mick was a guitar player that followed our band around, and he was just dying to get in our group.
We were playing Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin. Mick would come around to where we would play, and he would just stand there and look at us.
He was introverted and shy.
Mick had 2 children by his first wife. He had to make money so he could support the kids.
He didn't have a dime to his name. His amp was blown up, his guitar had a broken neck, and the guy had 1 set of clothes.
But it didn't matter. I was immediately blown away by the way he played.
Let's turn out the lights. This guy's just got it.
He added a dimension to the band that we didn't have before.
We knew we were going to be famous. We were in a record deal, and our managers saw disco as the next big thing. We want you guys to put 3 disco songs on your album. Mick and I said, no, we're not doing that.
We were a ballsy rock and roll band, and we weren't going to settle for anything less than that. Things just kind of fell apart after that.
Mick and Kenny continued on for a few years in Vendetta. Pretty soon that band fizzled out, and Mick was back on the streets destitute.
I don't know how Mick survived. He hooked up with another gal. He had another baby.
All of his bills started piling up. He was starting this pattern of failure, and I think he just saw, hey, I'm never going to be able to get out of this if I don't change something.
Mick had put an ad in the recycler stating that he was a loud, rude, aggressive guitar player looking for same, and he got a phone call from Nicky Six.
Mick showed up, and that was it.
Nicky and Tommy thought Mick had sort of an alien look, and that was appealing to them.
They started collaborating a little bit and held auditions for a singer.
Tommy goes, hey, I know this guy who sings great and he looks cool. His name's Vince.
Vince was born February 8th, 1961 in Inglewood, California.
Inglewood.
He was adorable.
He's from the block.
Chubby, short, little squatty legs.
My wife had him on the bed there, and I peered over to watch, and all of a sudden he just wee-weed all over my face. I learned not to be so inquisitive anymore.
Vince was very photogenic. One day they had this milk truck come around, and they saw him, they wanted to take his picture. I put little Buster Brown short pants on him and high-top shoes, and they took his picture, and he made the calendar.
He would be kind of shy in front of the immediate family.
But when you put him by himself in front of more people, then he was another person. Vince and his sister both took dancing lessons. They took tap, they took ballet, and he loved to dress up. He wore the little tights. Then as he got a little older, they wanted to take ice skating lessons.
We entered this competition. I was amazed of the jumps and twirls and stuff that he was doing.
He was the best figure skater. He was number 1.
Vince must have been probably 12 or 13 when we moved to Glendora.
When I first worked with Vince in 8th grade, he was very raw talent. Vince wanted to be part of the popular group of kids that played the instruments with the choir.
He loved music.
He wanted to be a guitar player, but we already had some guitar players. Vince was doing the singing primarily. We did some stuff from the rock opera Tommy. It was really a great way to get attention and a great way to be liked.
Vince loved the attention the girls gave him.
girls made him feel good. So Vince's direction was, gee, I need more of this.
How about Lil Mac? I know so many other artists whose stories are they got into music because they knew it got them girls. Especially in the rock star era. Everybody wanted to be a rock star because they knew what came with the lifestyle. But, you know, various artists knew what they was hopping into when they pursued the career. Let's keep it a buck.
I met Vince at Charter Oak High School. I was a big Van Halen fan at the time. I was looking to put something like that together.
Vince had the longest hair in the school. He kind of looked like a rock star already.
I thought he looked a little like Dave Roth. I asked Vince if he'd sang, and he said he had sang in a band.
He got into this band called Rock Candy.
We got together at a friend's house to play together. Vince was real timid and the voice was weak. We sang Hot Legs by Rod Stewart. I remember trying to coach him into putting a little more oomph behind it. And that's when I was pretty sure he hadn't sang in a band before.
Rock Candy was doing a lot of covers. Cheap Trick, some Eddie Money, Led Zeppelin.
As we played more and more things, Vince seemed to become more confident. His voice became stronger and bigger.
When Vince was on stage, he was a very different person. He would just lose himself.
He had so much charisma that he could really get an audience going.
The girls loved him. I couldn't believe this was my boy.
Vince switched from Charter Oak High School over to Royal Oak High School.
Vince and Tommy met through school.
Tommy played in the US 101 band, and he played like Beach Boy stuff. They were like Goody Two Shoes band. We were like a rock band.
Tommy looked up to Vince a lot. He introduced the Bad Girls to Tommy, and Tommy loved it.
Everybody thought Vince was just like the hottie.
Vince was respected because he was the ladies' man.
Vince's girlfriend was Tammy Jones.
They fell in love.
Eventually, they had a baby together.
Vince was 16 years old.
Having a baby at that young age, I think, added a lot of stress to Vince's life.
Vince started losing interest in school then.
His grades started sliding. It got to the point where he just didn't want to go to school anymore.
When Vince dropped out of school, we were very upset because he had so much potential.
He was spending more and more time just in his music.
Vince's mom and dad wanted him to have something to fall back on.
We were very disappointed. We wanted him to be a lawyer or a doctor.
That boy finna blow. Don't worry about it, mom and dad. We finna blow. We finna take off. It be crazy, bruh. Half the time these folks be chasing a dream and it's like, they be down in the dumps, man. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel, right? When you think it's, damn, he blew.
A high school diploma. I didn't want him to just be bouncing from one job to another.
Vince had a little temper. He wanted things done his way, not our way. Vince moved out of the house when he was 17. I was devastated. I wanted him to come home. How could he make it in the music field? He was just a boy from Glendora.
Young bull.
The more Rock Candy played, the bigger the crowds were getting. We played a lot of small clubs, and then we worked our way into Hollywood.
We played the Starwood. It's a whole different trip. It's definitely a next step up.
To us, that was, as big as it can ever get.
Rock Candy's playing, and Nicky shows up. I knew of Nicky from the band that he played in called London.
Tommy told Nicky about Vince being the singer of Rock Candy.
Nicky came and said, I found this new lead singer. It's this guy with this unusual voice. He's fronting a band called Rock Candy.
Vince said, there's this band that wants to pay me $150 a week to play with them.
Vince was pretty dedicated to our band at that time.
I go, $150? Buddy, anytime you can make money doing this thing, go do it.
He had the look, but his voice was a little suspect, so we decided we go with the look and we'll have to work with the voice as we go.
Nicky had the final cog in his vision in getting Vince Neil. Once Vince joined, something really clicked.
Vince was on his way to be a rock star, and that's what he wanted to be, and that was all there was to it.
When Tommy and Nicky and Vince and Mick finally hooked up, it just came together.
They seemed to have a good camaraderie and seemed to click pretty good.
My brother, John, was a roadie for Mick Mars. And John gave us a call saying that Mick had just gotten together with a new group and we should come down and see them. My husband wanted to get involved in the music business.
Alan Kaufman had already made money doing real estate.
He came down and took a look at him.
He met with the group and said, okay, I like what I see. Let's go ahead and cut a deal.
Alan had a lot of money and started pumping the money into the band.
The idea was you needed to spend money to make the group look
interesting. That's a rare start, right? A guy who had nothing to do with the music industry, just a potential investor, so to speak, had capital, took a risk on a band he believed in, started putting money. It's kind of like, he's the investor essentially, but he's kind of like the label at that point, right? He's giving an advance, he's putting money into the band, whether it's studio time, videos, etc., X, Y, and Z, who knows? But interesting start. You see a lot of these young bucks, they get a deal, or a lot of them stay independent, but you never really hear a story about a person who got into the business because he had a potential investor or someone who probably wasn't even related to the business but wanted to put some bread behind the talent, fund the talent to get it to the next level.
important to make them look like they had already hit #1.
They had better clothes and better equipment.
Tommy told me that we're going to call the band Mötley Crüe, with the umlauts. Well, I knew he didn't even know what umlauts were. It was all coming from Nikki.
You'd see Nikki and the other band members going around Hollywood plastering their posters on all the lampposts.
Motley started playing clubs right away.
The first show was at the Starwood.
There were a lot of people there that were probably already fans of London, and this was Nikki's new band. It was like, what's this going to be about?
When Mötley Crüe hit the stage, it was chaos.
It was big, and it was loud, and it was aggressive.
I just flipped out. That was their first show, and just people went nuts. I was all proud, I was all, hey, that's my brother.
Things were a little rusty, but you could tell the sound was there, the look was there, the energy was there.
It wasn't like, oh my God, this is going to go straight to the moon. They really were gelling. They were determined.
There was something so outstandingly different with Mötley Crüe. You just couldn't help but say to yourself that these guys are either going to fall flat on their face or they're going to go right to the top.
In early 1981 in LA, the new wave was probably the biggest scene going on.
It was mostly either dance music or punk rock music.
Bands like X and the Motels.
There was a lot of the Knack and the Cars.
There was like a punk, skinny-tied, short-haired reality.
Motley's music was different.
Mötley Crüe just represented kind of the underdog because there wasn't a lot of metal.
They started playing around, and at first people were like, Motley, what? What is it?
The Crue's whole look was something that nobody in LA was doing.
It was kind of girly, kind of freaky.
When I saw the way they dressed, I was startled. Vince had makeup on better than I could ever put it on. People were saying that he looked like a transvestite.
A lot of guys might have felt threatened by that.
Nikki didn't want to take no shit from nobody. If anybody gave any shit, boy, he'd retaliate right back.
Nikki was fighting with some punk rockers out in front of the whiskey and got beat up kind of badly. Had a really gnarly black eye. But he thought that was cool. Mötley Crüe were definitely the street tough kids.
We arranged for an apartment for them.
Mr. Kaufman put him up in a sleazy apartment, and it was awful.
Mötley Crüe lived on Clark Street, just a half a block above the whiskey.
Tommy called me up. Oh, you gotta see, we got our first apartment, So I said, well, all right, what number is it? He goes, don't worry, you'll find it.
The door was like coming off the hinges.
There was a mountain of beer cans outside.
There was one plant in the corner. It was dead. It was pretty destroyed.
The apartment wasn't done.
Every time they did a show, there was an after party.
They'd announce on stage, hey, everybody, there's a party at the house tonight. Come on up the street.
Next thing you know, half of LA is showing up.
People just drinking.
There was girls everywhere, wall-to-wall girls.
Blonde, big little clothing. They all want Nikki Sixx.
They were running around half naked in there. I hated it.
It was better than the Miss America beauty pageant or Hugh Hefner swimming pool.
I'd walk into rooms and just be astonished. I hadn't seen that kind of stuff in my life before.
I would hear all the reports about them getting wilder and crazier.
And then the cops had kicked down the door so many times that there was no more lock on the door.
The rise and rise of Mötley Crüe.
I suit at all was through. The only way that Alan and I had to control what the guys did at all was through money.
Basically, the group was put on an allowance.
If you want money, you have to conduct yourself in a certain way.
He gave them $20 each a week to live on. They already needed $2 a week for hairspray.
They had no food. They were eating junk.
They were basically just living off of whoever will help them out at the time.
The money they did have, they would drink it, you know. They would party with it.
I brought them McDonald's. When I walked in, I had French fries, and they would split them up. They would count them. One for you, one for you, one for you. And I'm going, this is really sad. Do you guys want some bologna or something?
They did everything together, except Mick.
Mick was older. He'd been doing this for a long time.
The guys used to rag on him for being the old man, but he had been there, done that so many times in the LA club scene, he wanted to get out of it.
He never had that teenage angst thing. It was always Tommy and Nikki and Vince, the terrible threesome. They hung out at the Rainbow until 2 o'clock every night. One time they were doing lines of Coke on the table, and there were girls underneath the table, and I'm not going to venture to what they were doing exactly.
We get the picture, lady. No
They
need.
released the Too Fast for Love record on Leather Records, which was their own record company.
We self-produced the first album under Kaufman and Kaufman Productions.
What they had recorded at the time was really raw. It was just straightforward rock and roll.
Over the next year, the plan was to have them play as much as possible.
There was apparently some sort of demand for these freaks. They were a complete joke to Hollywood. But you had another population from the suburbs, and they are the ones that actually supported Mötley Crüe.
They sold out a weekend, the whiskey, and there was a line going up the street.
We were upstairs in the dressing room. Tommy looks out the window and he's like, oh my God, you gotta come see this. There was a line of people. I mean, out the parking lot and down the Sunset Strip.
I'm driving down Sunset Boulevard, and all of a sudden I see kids lined up down the block to get into a show, and I look up on the marquee, and it's Mötley Crüe sold out. I'm like, I gotta see what this is about. For an hour and 20 minutes, the crowd just went berserk. And I decided from that moment, if everybody in this room would go this crazy for this band, this group is huge. I went to the next show, and I met them and offered them a deal.
The new management team at Elektra had their own way of doing things and their own vision for the group.
Alan Kaufman was definitely not a record company guy and didn't have a clue on how the record industry worked.
They should have been playing in bigger places.
They weren't getting the big bucks that they were hoping to get. Mötley Crüe felt that Alan couldn't take them to the next level.
Mötley Crüe dropped us. We spent a great deal of money on them and ended up with nothing.
Kaufman and Kaufman were entry-level managers. They did the best they could, but Nikki had bigger ideas.
The band really wanted to get a strong manager behind them.
I was packaging an Aerosmith tour, and I got a call from Tom Zutaut.
Doug said, I'm going to open up a management company, and I'm going to have a partner who will be interested in helping break Mötley Crüe.
Ted told me about this psycho band. He said, well, let's fly out and see what they look like.
We saw Mötley Crüe perform at the Santa Monica Civic Center on New Year's Eve of 1982, and I thought it was a phenomenal show.
They were getting heavily into the pyrotechnic.
These guys lit themselves on fire and all the craziest stuff you could possibly do. And
it was a 3-ring circus.
Just insane.
I looked at this and I said, this just needs to be taken from town to town, across the country, around the world. This'll work.
The next day we had a meeting with the band and signed them. When Doug and I took Mötley Crüe, it wasn't really a band, it was more like a gang. They were just these 4 guys that were completely whacked.
We felt we had to have a plan that would have almost immediate results. The alcohol and substance abuse was such that we couldn't take 5 years to turn this into something, or this organism would destroy itself.
Well said, well said.
Elektra moved to New York, and Bob Krasnow was put in charge.
Bob Krasnow didn't get this band.
Elektra was the home of Linda Ronstadt, Jackson Browne, Joni Mitchell.
We showed them pictures of Mötley Crüe, and they were just hysterical. They go, this is a record label, this isn't a circus.
Very quickly, it got confrontational.
Krasnow said, I don't want that music on this label. Elektra is going to be a label for real artistes. I'm not really interested in selling music to people who live in the gutter.
They didn't know much about this metal world.
We thought, well, we have to make a plan to keep this band on the label and turn Krasnow around.
The first plan of attack was to start building them in a touring base because they weren't going to get radio. There wasn't a radio programmer that wanted to play Mötley Crüe.
This guy from Apple Computers decides that he wants to throw the California Woodstock called the US Festival.
It was a 3-day festival out in the middle of nowhere.
We had to pull strings and favors and everything else to get on it.
And they had a great lineup: Quiet Riot, Triumph, Judas Priest, Scorpions, Ozzy, and the headliners were Van Halen.
I don't think I've ever seen that many people in my life.
You heard numbers of any place from 250 to 300,000.
Quiet Riot started the show off, and Motley came on second.
They were all just flipping out, just scared to death.
It seemed like they had a slow rise, a steady rise, more so. Like you know, they kind of put the work in over time, but it's like a lot of moving pieces, different developments, because a lot of them came from different backgrounds and such. But they're actually able to get on in a decent way. You know what I'm saying? They kind of organically built the fan base to where, like, a lot of the youth was in tune with them, to where, you know, a manager came into play, saw the excitement, to where he was able to get them a deal.
They stunk. They were an embarrassment.
They played horrible.
People are missing background vocal cues.
I could see their nervousness.
They just went up there and raced through a set. You could hardly tell what song they were playing.
Westwood One was there with their mobile truck recording. Tommy was so embarrassed that he was actually sobbing. He said, "You've got to find a way to stop Westwood One from airing this. This is terrible."
But it wasn't about Mötley Crüe playing.
What matters is how the audience reacts, more so than how well you play.
When Mötley Crüe came on, the kids were just nuts.
They went in there as a band that played clubs and came out of there knowing that 200,000 people went totally berserk for them.
They came off the US Festival, and they started to make Shout at the Devil with Tom Werman.
My job was get this band on the radio. When we went into the studio, Tommy and Mick were the two easiest people to work with by far. Nicky and Vince took time.
I get a screaming phone call from Tom Werman. "This guy can't play the bass," meaning Nicky. I said, "No shit, he never could. He's an entertainer, he's a songwriter, but he's a bass player."
Nicky was real good about putting songs together that were anthems. He knew how to hook that piece of music so that people would have something to sing along to. Looks to Kill.
Looks to Kill. The first time I heard it, I thought, there it is. There's the one that we launch a career behind.
Here's an opportunity to create a signature MTV hard rock band.
We started getting some airplay.
The Looks to Kill video created a whole buzz. Here you have visual band, visual medium, teenage rebellion, music that parents hate. It all connects. The next piece of the puzzle was to get them a tour.
Enter Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne. They were gracious enough to give us a spot on the tour.
It was a marriage made in heaven. The craziest young kids in the world with the craziest rock and roller in the world, all in one package.
People came to see Ozzy and went, Mötley Crüe is awesome. The guys learned so much from watching Ozzy. as a band. They knew how to hold audiences.
People would throw their fists in the air and chant. They brought you in and said, "You are ours. We are together. We are one." They had almost a cult-like feel.
The tour with Ozzy was the one that sealed Motley Crue's destiny.
I received a phone call from Tom Zutaut, and he said, "Dude, we have a hit."
Shout at the Devil had just taken on a life of its own.
Shout at the Devil exploded.
Supposedly, I heard they ran a whole lot with the like satanic narrative just for shock value, that they had no type of association with the dark arts, any type of Satanism, and none of that. I don't know if I'm completely wrong in saying that, but that's what I heard.
Didn't win platinum while we're on the tour with Ozzy. Now the record company gets amnesia. They don't remember ever not liking Motley Crüe. So now we got Krasnow with a Motley Crüe headband on.
When I saw the way the fans were reacting, I just went, oh man, they're gone. They're going to go all the way. And they did.
Nikki Sixx was the dad of Motley Crüe. It was his concept, his dream. He found the right guys to help him achieve it.
Vince transformed very quickly from being a minor league version of David Lee Roth to becoming one of the best rock frontmen of his time.
It was unbelievable to us that Vince turned out the way he did. Still to this day, I cry at every concert.
When Mick showed up in Motley Crüe, I was shocked. The guy that I met living in the gutter is going to be the most famous person that I know.
Tommy totally fulfilled and surpassed his dreams. He's gone beyond what he even probably imagined.
My mom and I were just in awe. It was like, oh my gosh, Nicky's done this. And look, he's good at it.
Everybody thought he was going to be a nothing, and he turned out to do something.
When they're 90 years old, the members of Motley Crüe will still be stars.
That's how it ended? The hell? That was short, sweet, to the point. It's Motley Crüe, the rise of Motley Crüe. Let me know y'all's thoughts on that one in the comment section below, man. Like, comment, subscribe, hit notification bell. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FortWorthFabian. It's road to 1 million, man. Motley Crüe. What hits they got, though? What bangers they got? Put them in the comment section below. Should I react to them or nah, man? Let me know y'all's thoughts on them, man. Peace, love, prosperity. Check out my other VH1 documentary reactions. I got some more on the way. If you have additional recommendations, put them in the comment section below. Check out my playlist page. Man, we'll see you guys in the next video. We out.